Got it. Thank you very much, Mike. I certainly appreciate it for everyone on the call. We absolutely appreciate your time. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're located. Obviously, in this very weird time we're all going through, hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. But obviously, with most people working from home, it's a good opportunity to learn about new things, including our own solution, which is called EVO-IP. It's an HDMI over IP solution, mainly for commercial applications. I'm going to hand it off later to Daniel after my intro here. He will take you through the product itself, the benefits, the features. Feel free to utilize the chat function within this webinar. After I hand over the reins to Daniel, I'll be taking a look at that, and I can respond to it, and then we can even cover those at the end of the session here. So without further ado, about Vanco. If you're not familiar with Vanco, we were born in 1957 in Illinois, where we reside today. We were originally a provider of mobile and CB accessories, and I can happily say that we no longer deal with mobile and CB accessories. About 20 years ago, we decided to focus on AV, specifically the HDMI cable, and we started producing and manufacturing the HDMI cable. Not many people know about this. We were actually second to market after a company called Monster in terms of HDMI cable manufacturing. After that, we kind of graduated to HDMI active distribution products, so sending out HDMI signals to multiple TVs, splitters, switchers, matrix units, HDMI extension, because the limitation of HDMI is length, and that limitation is still true today. In fact, you can only go 30 feet with 4K and HDR. We have options to go even further, such as active cables, fiber cables, and obviously HDMI extenders. So we have a whole line of HDMI active distribution products. We are a one-stop shop for anything AV. Doesn't matter if you need a cable, an HDMI splitter. We also have some audio options as well. We have speakers, amplifiers. Again, we are a one-stop shop for anything AV. Vanco is actually short for Van Company. We used to sell products, believe it or not, right out of a van, going from dealer to dealer, distributor to distributor. Obviously, we no longer do that today. Picture up above is our warehouse and our headquarters, located in Batavia, Illinois, about 35 miles west of Chicago. So one thing that many people do not know about us is our QC testing process. We take it a step further than anyone else. What we do is we employ 2 Vanco employees in Asia, where our products are manufactured and tested. They are responsible for, obviously, product development, but making sure every black box is tested before it ships out to Vanco. Whether it's an amplifier, an HDMI extender, or splitter, anything that requires a power supply and that is serialized. We take that a step further. What you're seeing on this slide at the top here, the picture of what's called our QC cage. Every tester has their own table, multiple displays, multiple sources, you name it, we've got it. All versions of Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, AV receivers, cable boxes, dish network receivers, all sorts of stuff. Point being, we are trying to break our product before it ships out to you guys, our dealers. Okay, so we test again before it even ships out to our distributors. Okay, with that, with our warranty, the Evolution line has a 10-year warranty. It's a very aggressive warranty, including the HDMI over IP product that Daniel will take you through. All of our cables, doesn't matter if it's an HDMI cable, VGA, Cat5e, Cat6 patch cable, heck, we even sell a lightning cable for Apple iPhones. All of them have a lifetime warranty. Our brand partners include JVC, Yamaha, VivoTech, Trendnet, and Luxel, and that list is only growing. Obviously, we test out with other major manufacturers such as Samsung, LG, and Sony. And last but not least, we have 4 great people in our tech support department, including Daniel, available via phone, email, or website chat Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Central Standard Time. We are available by request after those hours. More than happy to help out. So with that, I will hand this over to HDMI over IP. With HDMI over IP, it is a great solution for any commercial application because of the scalability, which Daniel will go through. But because we can turn any port on the back of a network switch into an input or output, And furthering that, we can always expand upon the inputs and outputs with HDMI over IP, so it's perfect for any commercial application. So again, I want to mention that as a takeaway from this. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Daniel Wilson. Daniel, take it away.
Frank, it's Randy. Daniel just texted me that he's having some technical difficulties. I think until he can dial back in, you need to handle this part too, and I'll keep an eye on the chat for you.
Sounds good. I appreciate that. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We'll go through HDMI over IP with myself then. So what is HDMI over IP? So if you guys are familiar with HDMI active distribution products, such as the matrix unit, we can take any source and we can send it to any display. Okay. The difference with HDMI over IP is now we're using a network switch instead of a fixed matrix unit. So the same way we can deliver audio, video, and control over a network. Okay. We can do point to point like an extender. We can switch any source to any display. We can take one source, split it to multiple displays, or any-to-any switching. Again, full flexibility, does not matter. Now, with a matrix unit, you are limited to the number of inputs and outputs that you have on that matrix unit. For instance, I have a 4x4 matrix unit at home. I'm sitting right next to it in my basement. It is a 4-in, 4-out unit. So that means if I needed to add a 5th, 6th, 7th TV, or even a 5th, 6th, or 7th source, guess what? I've got to replace that matrix unit with a larger matrix unit. With HDMI over IP, we run out of ports on that network switch. Same deal as networking. You need more ports, stack another switch. So again, great scalability and flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so Frank, sorry about that. I'm back online. I could take over if you'd like.
Sounds good. I will hand it over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So sorry about that, everybody. So this next slide here, implementing HDMI over IP. So one of the reasons why we'd want to implement it is that we are able to deliver a 4K and HDR resolution with the amount of sources out there that can push 4K and HDR. We want to be able to accommodate that. For control, to control your HDMI over IP system, you have the option to do it either locally with an IP address, or you have the ability to control it with an app. So with that app, you have the opportunity to manage your site remotely. No need to roll a truck. Great advantage for installers, gives us the ability to troubleshoot, monitor the system, and not being able to be on site. Great opportunity, especially for installers, to accumulate RMR. Some of the other implementations with video over IP, video wall capability. Whether it be a 2x2, a 3x3, whether it be one video wall or several video walls, with HDMI over IP, we can actually create a quite large video wall. And with Vanco's HDMI over IP system, we're able to do up to a 5x5 with a bunch of configurations we can do. Another great opportunity for commercial applications is the ability to do digital signage. Whether you want just an image or a logo on your display, or you want to go ahead and push a static text on there, we have the ability to do that. So any restaurants, bars, anything like that where they want to go ahead and promote any specials, whether it be daily, weekly, you name it, we have the ability to do that. Another reason as well is automation. So you can actually automate the system for a single event, like let's say the Super Bowl, World Series, or you can go ahead and schedule it for a reoccurring event as well. So another great opportunity with HDMI over IP is to manage the system and automate it as well. Okay. So I know that Frank talked about this a little bit, but one of the other reasons implementing HDMI over IP is the ability to expand your HDMI distribution system. So with matrices, splitters, switchers, you have a finite number of inputs and outputs. With HDMI over IP, you're only limited to the amount of Ethernet ports that you have on the back of your switch. And if you know your customer down the line is going to want to add more sources, more displays, we also have the ability to stack Ethernet switches, which also gives us additional inputs and outputs to work with. So really, it is the better option for larger distribution systems. So we can create more inputs and outputs as you go, right? I know that some places or some customers, they talk about having maybe just a couple sources and TVs in the meantime, but in the back of their mind, they're gonna wanna grow and have more sources, more displays. So we can create more inputs and outputs as we go, pretty much creating our own matrix with another couple of abilities as well, right? With that video wall, digital signage, and automation. Okay, so some of the pros and cons of HDMI over IP. So pros, right? Once again, always expandable. So we can create more inputs and outputs as we see fit. If our customer wants to add more direct TVs, more LG TVs around, we have flexibility in creating HDMI distribution system. We can extend, we can split, we can do matrix switching. So HDMI over IP gives us a number of things that we can do with our HDMI distribution system. Also, cost-effective solution for larger installations. Once you start getting past that 8x8, that's where you really start to see savings with an HDMI over IP system. Okay. So some of the cons. So since we're sending video over IP, right, there will be a compressed signal. And because we're doing video over IP, there are possible network limitations. Another con as well is interruption in audio and lag. But actually, with Vanco, we've come up with a solution if that problem were ever to occur. Okay, so what is needed when we're implementing HDMI over IP? So most, if not all, applications are going to require an Ethernet switch. That's where you're going to plug in your transmitters and your receivers. And you can stick with a 1 gig switch for just a small amount of sources. However, if you know that you're going to be working with a large amount of sources, whether it be camera systems, direct TV boxes for any bars or restaurants, you're going to want to go with a 10 gig switch. That switch is going to need multicast and multi-layer, jumbo frames for compression rate, IGMP snooping, and also we have the ability to choose a PoE switch. So if your transmitters and receivers like Vanco's EVO-IP system, if they utilize PoE, you don't have to use the power supply to power up your transmitters or receivers. You can just use that Ethernet switch. It makes for a cleaner installation. Okay. So this slide right here just gives us an idea of what jumbo frames are. So to the right, we have a picture of standard frames, and then below it, we have the jumbo frame. So with the standard frame, with our bandwidth and data flow, we got a little bit of payload, which is a tiny bit of overhead with gaps in between there as well, going through our bandwidth. So when we enable jumbo frames, what do we get? We get better channel utilization. So now that payload, there's no gaps. We still get a little bit of overhead, but that payload is running constantly through our bandwidth and our data flow. So really what jumbo frames is doing with our HDMI over IP system is that it's reducing the amount of redundant data that is getting sent with each frame. So jumbo frames may not be useful in all types of networking setups, but it is very useful, if not essential, when we're building our HDMI over IP system. And then we have IGMP snooping. So IGMP snooping just stands for Internet Group Management Protocol. Think of IGMP snooping as a traffic cop, right? You want to send a source to a few different displays. IGMP snooping is going to allow you to do that. So it's going to forward multicast traffic to HDMI over IP transmitters and receivers. And with IGMP snooping, we could do several things, right? We could do one-to-one unicast. We can extend from one source to a display. We can also do broadcast, right? If we wanted to take one security camera and split that up over multiple monitors, we could do one-to-all. And we also have the ability to do multicast, which is one to several, right? Being able to take that one source, send it to a few TVs, leaving those other displays blank for another source to be assigned to them. Okay, and this just gives you a little idea with multicast for HDMI over IP, right? We have our HDMI source connected to our transmitter, routed into our Ethernet switch, coming out of the Ethernet switch into these receivers, and we have 3 displays already assigned to this one source. So with multicast, that's going to allow your HDMI over IP system to matrix switch. Okay, so a system design, what is needed? So for every source that you have, you'll need a transmitter with it. You could run Cat 5e up to Cat 7 into your Ethernet switch, another requirement for your system design. Run your Cat 5e to Cat 7 all the way to your receivers. So how many displays that you have on site is how many receivers that you'll need, right? And they'll connect via HDMI into your displays. Another thing that we're going to need with our system design is what we call the control box, right? The brains of the operation. That's also going to go ahead and plug into your Ethernet switch along with your transmitters and receivers. And with that control box, that's not PoE, so you will need the power supply that comes with it. Right? But with the system design, really, it's all you need. Just a transmitter for every source, receiver for every display, and a control box, and your Ethernet switch acts as your hub. Okay. So implementing HDMI over IP. So where is it useful? For commercial, it's perfect for almost any application, right? Bars, restaurants, hotel lobbies, any conference rooms, right? We have the ability to do a video wall, whether we want it to be one large image or multiple sources within that video wall. Great for video surveillance, right? With HDMI over IP, we can actually go up to 100 meters, so 330 feet of Cat 5e up to Cat 7 into our Ethernet switch, and another 330 feet out. We can do scheduled switching. Again, we could automate the system so that end user doesn't really have to touch that user interface if they don't want to. We also have the ability to do messages, have logos, do pictures, you name it. So for commercial, once again, perfect for almost any application, especially if it's a larger HDMI distribution system we're working with. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and step into Vanco's HDMI over IP solution, the Evolution EVO-IP. So some of the features and benefits with our EVO-IP system is we can pass a 4K signal at 60 Hertz refresh rate, 444 chroma subsampling, 18 gigabits per second, and HDR. We got a great user interface that's very easy to operate, not only for the installer, but for the end user as well. And right, we could either access this locally, or we can access this system with an app as well. So it uses an Amazon cloud-based service that we don't charge you on. So once you set up your cloud access, you're able to control your system with an app. Alexa enabled. So if your customer has an Amazon Echo Dot lying around, they can use that to control this system, right? So if we were ever thinking about putting EVO-IP in a residential place, they got an Amazon Echo Dot, let them know, hey, you can use that to control your EVO-IP. And our transmitters and receivers, they utilize PoE. So if you got a PoE enabled switch, you don't have to use the power supplies that come with our transmitters and receivers. Makes it for a cleaner installation. So our features and benefits with our EVO-IP system, we can do scheduled switching, right, for a single event or a reoccurring event. And there's a number of other things that we can do. We can mute the feed from our receivers to our transmitters, right, great for closing. We can resume that feed for openings. With the video wall capability up to a 5x5 configuration, we could do one massive image. We could do a video wall within a video wall. We could do customized on-screen messages. So we could push a message on our displays or an image. Automated notifications. That's fantastic for the installer. So the installer can set themselves up to receive emails, text messages, both anytime a transmitter or receiver goes down, right? And with the ability to access their system remotely, there's a couple other things that we can do, like schedule your transmitters and receivers to reboot. Also, drivers. We have drivers for Control4, URC, and RTI, and I do believe that we are trying to grow that list for third-party control as well. So another feature that we have with our EVO-IP system is the ability to scale at each receiver. So your typical matrix or splitter, if we're going to 4K displays, we got a couple 4K sources. Even if you add one 1080p, that matrix splitter switcher, that's going to go ahead and distribute 1080p throughout your entire distribution system. With EVO-IP, we can go up as high as 4K, and we could downscale as low as 720p. So even if we have some mix and match options with our displays, one's capable of only doing 1080p, another one's only able to do 720p, I could do one with 4K. We can scale at each of those receivers to give them their proper resolution. Okay. So the recommended Ethernet switches, right now we have Luxel, TreadNet, Cisco, Ubiquiti, package is on its way, and we're also trying to grow this list as well. The reason being is that we didn't want to stick you to just one switch. You know, if you are a Ubiquiti guy, we wanted to be able to accommodate you. Same with Luxel, same with TreadNet. We do have a full list of the actual model numbers for each of these brands. With HDMI over IP, with our system, it's highly recommended that you pick one of these switches and one of their models. And as you can see, some of them are only rated for a single switch. Other ones you can use to stack your Ethernet switches to create more inputs and outputs. But again, this is our current list, and we are trying to grow this list so we can work with as many Ethernet switches as possible for you guys. Okay, so the EVO-IP hardware. So for every source that we have, we'll need a transmitter with it, the EVO-IP TX1. Our transmitter utilizes PoE. It comes with an HDMI loop out if we wanted to hook up to a local display or connect to another HDMI distribution system. For control, we offer RS-232 and bidirectional IR, and we can de-embed audio, digital, or analog on the transmitting side. The receiver, EVO-IP RX1. So for every display that you have on site, you'll need a receiver with it. And like our transmitter utilizes PoE, control, we have RS-232 and bidirectional IR, and we can de-embed audio, digital, or analog on the receiving side. Okay. This part number here, the EVO-IP-EASY, is a new part number to Vanco. The reason why we wanted to create this is because we wanted to come out with a cost-effective solution. And there's two reasons why this is a cost-effective solution. Let me just go ahead and click on this side so we can see here. So our control box, the EVO-IP CTL1, we consider that the brains of the operation. That's how we're able to access video wall, the user interface, the OSD, the matrix. So with the EVO-IP-EASY, the only ability that you'll have with our user interface is the matrix switching. The second stipulation is that the max resolution you can get out of the EVO-IP-EASY is 1080p. So right there, that's what it makes it a cost-effective solution. You only get the matrix switching and a max resolution of 1080p. However, if your customer's okay with the 1080p resolution, they're looking at the user interface and they're saying, hey, you know, I think that the only one that we'll be using is the matrix switching, the EVO-IP-EASY is perfect for you. Can be used on the same system as EVO-IP. With this control box here, it is one SKU, so you can either choose it to be a transmitter or receiver. Comes with the same bells and whistles as our other transmitter receiver, RS-232, bidirectional IR, HDMI loop out. And that's it. So with Vanco's HDMI over IP system, we only have the 4 SKUs. The reason why we wanted to do that is for simplicity's sake. We didn't want to make another SKU just to do the video wall, another one to do OSD. We just wanted to condense it into 4 SKUs, right? So transmitter, receiver, one box that's both of them, and your control box. Okay. So moving on to the user interface. So once we have everything set up within our HDMI over IP system, transmitters, receivers, control box, hooked up into our Ethernet switch, everything's powered up. The next part of this presentation is how to access the user interface, and then we'll go over each of those tabs. And there's actually multiple ways that we can access the user interface. First is an IP address. So your control box will spit out a specific IP address that we could type into our web browser. Second is a URL, evo-ip.local. We could type that into our web browser as well. Third way that we can do that is with the QR code. So with the QR code, you could take your phone or tablet, scan that QR code, and access the user interface that way. Okay, now everybody give me just one moment. I'm gonna go ahead and access my user interface. Here we are. Okay. All right, so this is the user interface. As you see, I've already entered in evo-ip.local to access my user interface. The first tab that we're seeing here is the setup tab. And in terms of setup, very minimal, customizable as well. So anytime that you add oh, yes.
I'm sorry about that. No, for some odd reason, we're still showing your PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure if you have it on another screen.
Oh, no. Give me just one second. I'm so sorry. Let's see here. Give me just one moment. Are you able to see it now?
There you go. Perfect. Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Sorry about that, guys. So the first tab here is the setup tab. And with the setup tab, right, we wanted to make this as easy with a little bit of minimal work. So any new transmitter or receiver that you put into your Ethernet switch, our system updates every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, when you add a new transmitter or receiver, it's going to add it into this queue. It's going to let you know what type it is, either transmitter or receiver. And we could also give our transmitters and receivers their own unique name. And then we have status right here at the right. Green is good, lets you know that your system and your transmitters or receivers are online. Also lets you know how long they've been running for as well. You can actually go into this edit pencil here for the transmitter. All right, so we have our status, LAN, video stream, HDCP. Here is where we could rename our transmitters. We could assign them a group ID to help us with our matrix mapping. We could also either assign it a photo. So we give you a few photos that you can work with, Blu-ray player, AV receiver, or you could set it up to preview mode. And I'll show you what preview mode is in the matrix, but real quick with preview mode, take snapshots of your sources and displays, refreshes every 10 to 15 seconds. It's a great tool to use, especially if you want to make sure that your sources and displays are communicating properly. For AV settings, we have our streaming video, and then we actually add something new called transmitter speed. So earlier in this presentation, I told you that one of the cons with video over IP is the chance that our audio can start to lag. So with transmitter speed, we can actually adjust the speed of the transmitter so our video and audio will sync up together. We also have an EDID mode here, so we can give every transmitter a specific EDID, RS-232 settings, and then we have some maintenance buttons down here below, factory default, reboot, and then we have a blink LED feature. So once we click blink LED, the specific transmitter will actually start to blink red. So if there was a transmitter that may be going on or offline and you want to go ahead and troubleshoot it and pinpoint which transmitter it is on the rack, I know sometimes guys use labels, but with the machines, the black boxes, they can run a little hot. Those labels can fall off. So we wanted to just make that troubleshooting a little bit easier to locate transmitters or receivers. You could either go in there to hit the blink LED, or you can just click this circle right here to make it start blinking for you. Okay. So in the receiver, like the transmitter, we get identification, status. We could change the name, group ID. Here's where we have the ability to scale in the AV settings. Another feature that we have is the ability to rotate the display either 180 degrees or 270. And then we have RS-232 settings and the maintenance buttons like the transmitter, factory default, reboot, and blink LED. Now, one other feature that we've added is the ability to export and import configurations. So let's say that you scored a franchise and it's the same setup everywhere else. Your first EVO-IP system, you set up all your transmitters, receivers, you've done your mapping, set up your video wall, OSD, you're moving on to the next location. So you can actually export your configuration onto your laptop, put that on a USB drive, carry that to the next location, hook up everything, open up to your user interface, import the configuration, and then you can copy and paste it in there, and everything that you've done with your user interface will carry over here. Every unique names that you give your transmitter and receiver, presets, video wall configuration, you name it. Great for franchise. Another thing that this is great for is, let's say if your location receives lightning storm, power outage, something were to affect your control box. Well, once you set that up, highly recommend to export that configuration. So God forbid something were to happen with your control box, you can call tech support at Vanco. We can issue you a service tag number, right? Like Frank mentioned earlier, we have a 10-year warranty with our Evolution products. You get a new control box, plug that back in, and then import those same configurations back in. Okay. So the next tab that I'll go over is the Matrix tab. So with the Matrix tab, this is where we can go ahead and route our transmitters to our receivers. And all we have to do that is click and drag. So if I want on my Roku right here, on my Samsung TV, just click and drag. And then I can hover over the source to see what displays it's going to. Same with displays. We also have the ability to mute either our transmitters, which will actually mute our receiver as well, or we can mute an individual receiver. And then we have an all function right here. So let's say that we wanted to put the big game on. All we need to do, just unmute this, is drag our one source into the all. And now all of our displays will be having that one source on there. Okay. So for the app, I know that sometimes people and users are a little bit wary of doing the drag and drop method. So if they don't like the drag and drop method, we do give you the option, just give them tabs. So your source has its own tab, displays have its own tab, and then here's where we can do mapping. So if I wanted to send my Roku to my bar TV, apply mapping success, come back on here, and there we are. And then one more thing that we have in the matrix mode are presets. So presets for source switching to a certain display, we can go ahead and set that up for our end users as well. Okay. So the next tab is the video wall tab. So with Vanco's EVO-IP, we can do up to a 5x5 video wall configuration. But we could actually do up to 87 different combinations with our video wall, so long as they don't exceed 25 displays. We also give you 8 presets. So if you wanted 8 presets of multiple video wall configurations for your one video wall, or you wanted several video walls at your location, you have up to 8 configurations that you can do. So all you'd have to do is start building your video wall. Let's see, let's go ahead and click here. We could give the video wall its own unique name. We can update the layout. So just to show you guys, so if I do want it to do the 5x5, go ahead and update. All right, let's say I just want to stick with the 2x2 for right now, do a simple one. So all we have to do to start building our video wall is take a source and then drag it into these displays right here. So if I wanted to do a massive video wall, 2x2, and then I assign it a display. And the displays will actually match the color of my source. So all my displays are blue. Now I know that they're assigned to my Blu-ray source. And because we've already named our transmitters and receivers in the setup tab, building the video wall is fairly easy. Another thing that we can do is we can rotate the images on the video wall, either 180 degrees, 270. We can update bezel adjustments for each individual TV on the X and Y axis for any TVs with thin bezels on the bottom or on the side. And then anything you don't like, you can hit this trash can right here. Okay. And once you figure out your video wall configuration, you can go here, click save, go back to your video wall, move this button to the right. There'll be a green button right here next to preset 4, and now our video wall is active and online. Okay. Right, so with Vanco's EVO-IP system, we have the ability to do a video wall beyond just a 2x2. So we can do that 3x3. We can create a video wall within a video wall. So let's say if I wanted to do a 4x4 and make each of these quadrants its own source, we have the ability to do that as well. So with our video wall, we do have a good amount of flexibility in configuring how we want our video wall to look. So the OSD feature, this is where we can go ahead and upload logos, create text to throw onto our displays. So in the Upload Delete Custom OSD Image tab, this is where we'll go ahead and upload our images, drop the file, click to upload from your computer, so long as it meets this criteria down here below. And you have a maximum of 16 images that you can upload into our OSD. And then how do we get an image onto our display? Well, like the matrix mode and like the video wall mode, all we have to do is click and drag. Okay. Now my Vanco logo being proudly displayed on my Samsung TV here. Then I have 2 other texts on my bar on my Sony, last call. So let's say I wanted last call being projected to all my TVs, working at the bar, wanted everybody to know this is your last opportunity. Like the matrix mode, we could just drag this into all, and now all my displays will have that same static text. We can go into the gear and specific image or message. We could give it a unique name. For the images, we could either do a single or we can do an album. We could update the resolution, that just changes the size. We could change the transparency. And with album, we have the ability to cycle through multiple photos and play them in order or in random. So if a bar or restaurant wanted to show off daily specials in a slideshow fashion, they have the ability to do that. For the messages, like the images, we can update resolution and transparency, position it on the X and Y axis. We give you a few different colors, size font, and this is where you go ahead and enter your message text. We also give you a test function to make sure that it's positioned properly. And then we have the ability to mute our messages or images right here. So if you ever wanted to keep the message on, but just wanted to mute it, you click here to unmute it as well. Okay, so the next tab, schedule. This is where we can go ahead and automate the system for a single event or a reoccurring event. I will let you know that in terms of our schedule tab, it is limitless. You could have as many schedules on this control box as your customer or you need. So all we have to do is start building our schedule configuration. Hit this plus right here. All right, now we can start configuring. First, it's gonna ask us our type, either our transmitter or receiver, the name of the device, the duration. So you click this and it'll pick a calendar. So if you only wanted this to be just for a single day, single event, choose your start date and end date as the 14th. If you wanted this running, let's say, all the way to the end of May, we can go ahead and do that. Then hit apply. Then we could choose the date when the schedule configuration will happen. So let's say I wanted this happening every Tuesday and Thursday. I just want to make sure that Tuesday and Thursday are bold. And then we could choose the time when the schedule configuration starts. It is military time. And then we have some actions down here. So this first action is mute. Great closing time feature. So you can set your receivers to mute the feed to their displays at a certain time at a certain date. And with TVs nowadays, especially the newer models, if they're not playing any content after a few minutes, they'll go ahead and shut down, right? Makes closing time for your customers easier. Then we have resume. So now we're resuming the feed back into our displays. And then we can use either our third-party control, bidirectional IR, turn on our TVs. So great for openings as well. Remapping. So this is where we could go ahead and do source switching at a certain time, at a certain date, whether a big game is on or a special event that we want to go ahead and show on one display or all displays. We have the ability to do that with the remapping. We also have the ability to reboot transmitters and receivers at a certain time and a certain date. So if you wanted to schedule transmitters and receivers to reboot either before they open or after they close, you have the ability to do that. Especially great tool with the remote access that you could schedule reboots at any given time. And then you have cycle play on. And with cycle play on, we could cycle through multiple sources between 10 and 60 seconds if you wanted to create your own slideshow. And once you figured your schedule configuration, you just hit add, then apply. And now your schedule configuration will be saved all in your control box. Okay. All right, so this next tab, event tab, specifically for the installer. So with the installer, once they go ahead and set up their cloud access, they can go ahead and set themselves to set up emails, text messages, or both anytime a transmitter or receiver goes down. You can assign one person to a device. You can assign multiple people to a device. But here we actually have the ability to reboot anytime we choose the event of video loss. So if I was an installer and I get an email or text message saying, hey, my transmitter Blu-ray experiences a loss of video, well, I know that this was scheduled to reboot if that were ever to happen. So with my remote access, I don't have to call my customer. I don't have to roll a truck. I could just go right up to setup. Just make sure that that transmitter or receiver has that green status light right next to it. Now we know that reboot was successful. All right, so great tool, great troubleshooting tool for the installer. Then we have the access tab. So with the access tab, we could limit what sources are allowed to go into our displays. So for right now, my Samsung, the only source that's allowed to go to that is my Blu-ray. Or we could have unlimited, which means any of these sources can go into my bar or Sony TV. So this is great for any like office buildings if you didn't want a certain source to go to a certain display, any CCTV applications. Also great for residential because we have an account name and password. So if mom and dad didn't want son or daughter watching Netflix, Apple TV, or playing video games in their room late at night, they can go ahead and set up account name and password. Okay. And then the last tab that we have here is the log tab. So it just acts as big brother. And it's going to watch over your whole system up to a calendar year from any events, schedules, actions, any successful logins or unsuccessful logins or logouts as well. It'll monitor your whole system right up to a full calendar year. And then we can actually download a PDF file if your customer end user wanted a bi-monthly, bi-weekly report on their system. Also great for the installer, right? So they can keep track of transmitters and receivers. If they notice a specific transmitter or receiver that keeps going offline or keeps rebooting, just helps them with troubleshooting when they actually do have to go back on site. Okay. And one more thing I wanted to show you guys is the smart controller, which is this tab right here. So with the smart controller, by default, our EVO-IP system comes as DHCP. This is where you can go ahead and assign it a static IP address. You can go ahead and pull your time zone onto your control box, so your schedules will align with your time where you are. You can set up user accounts, so you have up to 20 user accounts that you can set up with this EVO-IP system. Cloud, this is where they'll go ahead and get their cloud access. And maintenance, this is where they'll go ahead and do firmware updates for their EVO-IP system, and we will alert you anytime that we do come out with a new update for our control box. Okay. Okay, so that's the full installer user interface. What I want to show you guys is what the end user interface will look like. So with the end user, they're going to go ahead and have limited access. The only tabs that they'll get in the user interface is the matrix, video wall, OSD, and the scheduling. The installer, what you guys just saw, will have that full installer access. Okay, and then just a great accessory for EVO-IP, Vanco does offer a universal rack shelf mount, great for holding your transmitters, receivers, splitters, switchers, EVO-IP system, you name it. The kit itself comes with the shelf and 4 mounting brackets. You can actually buy additional mounting brackets, and those are sold separately. And those are the 2 part numbers we have down there, those last 2 bullet points. And then just a couple of EVO-IP installations that Vanco has been a part of. We've done boardroom there at Petco Park out in San Diego. We did a sports bar out in Chicago in the Logan Square area. And then we've actually done a video wall. Oh, yeah, what's up?
I'm sorry, you're still on the user interface. If you can swap back to the PowerPoint.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry, everybody. Let me just go back a couple ones. You can see my EVO-IP installations.
Yep, perfect.
Okay, let me just go back really quick just to show you guys what the end user interface will look like, right? Once again, limited access. What you guys were seeing that unfortunately was still frozen on the screen was the full access for the installer, right? The end user really only needs the matrix to source switch, video wall tab to activate any video wall configurations they have, OST to upload their logos, and of course the scheduling tab if they wanted to add a new schedule. And that's that universal rack shelf mount that I was just talking about earlier. Okay. And then the EVO-IP installations, Petco Park, right? We did a boardroom out in San Diego. We did a bar out in Chicago in the Logan Square area. And then we did a video wall at the downtown club at the Met Houston. Now I like this picture a lot because it's a 3x3 video wall with a 2x2 up here in the corner. And then these displays have their own source assigned to them. So it just kind of gives you an idea of the flexibility with what we can do with our video wall configurations. Okay. All right, and that is the end of the presentation. Frank, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, anything that I might have missed.
Absolutely. So one thing I do want to mention, I'm going to read back the questions that we've gotten, some great questions that were asked. So we'll cover that in a bit. But really quick, this slide just shows our contact info. So if you guys have any other questions or want to do a one-on-one webinar, we're more than happy to do that. Also, we do have local representation in your area. It doesn't matter where you're located. We have representation on the West Coast, Midwest, East Coast, and even up in Canada. So do us a favor, if you guys are looking for a demo, a real-time demo, our reps can certainly provide that. Reach out to myself or Daniel. Again, you'll see our contact info up top. So with that, let's cover some of the questions that were asked, just for the benefit of the entire audience here. Looks like there's questions in the chat and some in the Q&A. So I'll start with the chat with the first question that we got from Sean Stuckey. You may address this during the webinar, but how does Vanco HDMI over IP routing work versus something like just add power in terms of video, audio quality, features, functionality, control? So Daniel really covered that. In terms of resolution, again, we can do full 4K, 60 frames, full 4:4, and HDR. HDR 10 and Dolby Vision is what we can pass. In terms of the functionality, switching, you guys saw that with the Matrix unit. The user interface was really designed for the end user in terms of matrix switching and even setting up video wall applications. All right, let's take a look at other questions. Let me switch back to the question and answer. Where in this GUI would I remotely turn off and on the TV? So you wouldn't within our user interface. We can pass along RS-232 commands through the receiver and transmitter. Do you have units for testing, Enrique Casas? Yes, we do. So if you can reach out to us, and again, we can put you in contact with a local representative of ours. Can I use the switch for other things or the switch dedicated only for video? Great question also from Enrique Casas. We highly recommend that our switch be dedicated to our system. We've had applications previous to where they're using one Ethernet switch for the EVO-IP system and other things, but what we found is it causes issues. Now you can certainly set up VLANs for that to get around that. It really depends on what type of system that you are incorporating into that switch that includes our system as well. So unfortunately it's variable. Sean Stuckey, I may have missed this during the webinar, but can your system be controlled with RTI control for etc.? Yes, we have RTI drivers and control for drivers as well. We are looking to expand the drivers for the system. We don't want you stuck with a certain control system. Certainly, we are looking to expand that list and have this opened up to all or most companies, I should say. It seems the system can be accessed remotely. Is this all cloud-based or is router configuration port forwarding required? Right now, currently, access remotely. So as Daniel showed, via IP or an app available on iOS or Android, right now cannot be port forwarded. However, we are working on that. Can we use VLANs in the switches? Absolutely, Ludo Fontana. Yes, you can. VLAN is recommended. In fact, we have a white paper in terms of setting up the switch, and setting up VLANs is outlined in that document. From Rick Kaminer, I hope I'm saying that right. Can the HDMI be sent directly from the TCP/IP connection on the PC without going through the video out and using your transmitter? Unfortunately not. You do have to utilize a transmitter for each and every source. We are taking a look at that. In fact, somebody asked that question earlier of directly connecting a computer into the Ethernet switch. Right now, you cannot. You would have to have a transmitter, and the computer has to have an HDMI output or display port. We can convert that to HDMI, obviously. Another question from Mikhail Ocasio. Do I need to port forward to enable remote control outside the local network? You do not. No, you do not. William Palco. Does Vanco make a converter to go from an HDTV terrestrial antenna to HDMI? We do not. I would have to check on our retail side, but we do not make that kind of converter. Chris, I'm not trying to say that last name, so I'm not going to even try. I don't want to butcher that last name. But we have a lot of customers using Ubiquiti Unify switches. I saw you mention Edge Switch ES series, but have you tried to use the one on Unify series? I believe they support multicast and IGMP snooping, but need to double check. Yes, we have. We came across some minor issues with it. I know that we're still working on more Ubiquiti switches, including the Unify series. Some more to come on that. I know Brandon White, our product development director, is looking to expand upon that. So great question on that. Kevin Nickel, what sets the solution apart from the others in the industry? I can't speak to price. I'm sure our sales staff knows more about price, but in terms of simplicity, we really only have 4 SKUs, and really it's 3 SKUs for 4K. Whereas our competitors, they have a laundry list of SKUs, and if you need 1080p, you need to buy a certain receiver transmitter. If you need 4K, that's a separate receiver transmitter. For some of our competitors, if you need IR, it's a completely additional add-on piece. With us, it's really 4 SKUs, 3 SKUs for 4K, but we also include all the stuff you need: control, RS-232, bi-directional IR. You can de-embed audio on both units. You have an HDMI loop out. So there's really no guessing game in terms of adding a source or display. Now we are adding, again, as Daniel mentioned, the EVO-IP EV for cost efficiency. But if you're working with 4K, you need a transmitter for every source, a receiver for each display, and that's pretty much it. Another question from William Palkill. Since all the transmitters and receivers should reside on a single switch, can I utilize any unused switch port example? So that's actually not true. So you can actually use multiple switches. Now we do have specific manufacturers where you can stack switches. So keep that in mind. We do have a white paper on our website of recommended switch applications, whether you're using a single switch or multiple switches. So again, we can send that to you, William. Just send me an email and I can send you a link to that document. Vincent Vuong, is this going to drop the local bandwidth? It can, okay? Again, because of obviously the bandwidth that we're pushing through here. If you're pushing full 4K with HDR, yes, it can. And that's why we recommend a dedicated switch for most applications. Enrique Casas, again, can we use Netgear switches? Not at this time. Again, the switches that we're compatible with right now, TrendNet, Luxel, Ubiquity, Package, and Cisco. All right, another question from Chris. Any customers successfully use this over a point-to-point wireless where a transmitter is in one building and receiver with displays in another location over a wireless PTP bridge? I have not come across that. Daniel, have you?
I think someone tried to, but I don't know how much success they had. I think they were kind of struggling with a little bit, but that was maybe more than a year ago, so I'm not too sure if they were able to get it running or not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's as far as I know.
Yeah, Chris, I have not come across that. I can certainly ask our product development director on that for clarification. Let's see here. One more from Sean Stuckey. Is the customer interface web browser only, or is there a smartphone app? There is an app. So even for end users where the user interface is cut down to 4 tabs, there is an app available. There are 7 more questions that I answered previously, so I'm going to cover that really quick. From Dominic Morelli, is this HDMI 2.2? This is actually HDMI 2.0. Not many devices out there, displays, sources out there are on HDMI 2.2, let alone 2.1. Last I checked, and this was about a couple weeks ago, there's only 1 or 2 displays out there with HDMI 2.1. If you're talking about HDCP, yes, this is HDCP 2.2. Question from Eric Brown. This is already covered, but can video from a computer serve as the video source without the need of a transmitter? Again, you do need a transmitter. Unfortunately, at this time, we cannot we cannot connect a computer directly to a network switch. Further from Eric Brown, I was thinking more of slideshows from PowerPoint or Google Slides to play in a business, not looping video or digital signage videos. So it's a great point. I will certainly ask our product development team on that because I know, again, they are trying to develop a media streamer, an internal media streamer, where you can punch in or connect a thumb drive and play looping videos for digital signage. For PowerPoint or Google Slides, it's a great question. I'll certainly follow up on that.